Welcome to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. Your co-hosts, Jason Smith and Brian Bibbo, will inspire and teach you how to prosper in your mind, body, and spirit, not just your financial life. Joining forces with field experts, Jason and Brian are here to help you focus on what matters most in your life, living well.
Welcome, everybody. This is Jason Smith, and I have a special guest, an old friend of mine that has been helping me out in the holistic health area, not just helping me out, really leading the way. And Kasia Hrecka, did I say it right, Kasia?
Yes, you got
All
it.
right. Awesome. And so where are you at right now, Kasia?
Right now, I'm actually in Germany because I used to live in Ohio and now I live in Germany.
All right. And we have in common, Kasia actually had a set of twins as well. How old
Yes.
are the twins now, Kasia?
3 years old and 3 months. Yes,
Nice.
they're a little bit younger than yours, right?
It's hard to believe it's been that long.
I know.
Yeah, unbelievable. So, Kasia, give a little bit of your background, and then I want to kind of tell everybody how you and I got started working together, and kind of go work our way from the backward to the present. Yeah.
Yeah. So I have a PhD in biochemistry, which had the great pleasure and honor to get from Cold Spring Harbor Laboratory in New York. I got to research the immune system and HIV proteins and how they interact together. That was really fun and great adventure for 13 years. And then I actually decided I did not want to have my own lab and I needed a change of career. So I was looking for what is my other passion than just finding out how things work. And I actually decided that my passion is really to bring the existing knowledge into practice, because when one is in the lab, we're pushing the boundary of knowledge, but we already have so many discoveries and so many research papers. So I was like, hey, how do we use this knowledge? What can we do for right now for bettering our life? And that's kind of how I found functional medicine. I started with health coaching and then I found the functional medicine. And that just, for me, was, music to my ears, because it was not only how things work, but it was really going deep into how the body works and what can we do to correct certain things when they are off, especially in chronic conditions. So, yeah, I've been doing functional medicine health coaching for 10 years now, believe it or not.
Yeah. That's great. And how long has it been, Kasia, that you and I have been working together? I was trying to think of it before we jumped on. I was thinking maybe 6 years, 5, 6
Yeah,
years.
we are coming up on 6 years. I think we started in the summer of 2018.
Okay.
Yeah. And it was
Yeah.
just, it went really fast from there. Yeah, we had a break for when I was on maternity leave. You were working with one of my coaches, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's been a while.
And Kasia, just to give the listeners a little bit of background, and I've talked about this in the past, but just to share my situation and what led me to start working with Kasia is I had open heart surgery in 2018, in early 2018. And as I was recovering from it, I actually kept getting sick. I was getting pneumonia and the flu and bronchitis like every 6 weeks. I just couldn't seem to beat it. My immune system was really down. And ultimately, I couldn't really figure out cracking the code of my allergies. I had chronic sinusitis and allergies. And I knew I needed some help. So you were referred over to me, Kasia, and we started working together. And the first thing I remembered you doing is a food sensitivity type of
Okay.
test, like trying to
Mhm.
identify. And then you also had me do something I'd never done before, where I had to go number 2 in a box and send it away to test my microbiomes, I believe, and my gut health. And
Yes.
so talk a little bit about that, Kasia.
Yeah, I remember that quite well when you first started. And what I also loved, you actually wanted to have the whole family on board, and you asked me to do like a sweep the pantry and let's go shopping day together. And
Yeah.
that was really fun because yes, apart from looking at the whole how the body works, on the biochemical level, I'm very passionate in about putting all this stuff into practice. And a lot of the science that we already have, it does translate into our everyday choices. So when you came and you said that your immunity is impaired, then it was, after looking at all your answers to this super detailed questionnaire that's a typical entry point to any functional medicine practice, it was quite obvious that we have to have a look at what you're eating, right? And at your microbiome, because over 2/3 of our immune system is housed around the gut. This is a common knowledge. I think everybody talks about it on social media, so it's no revelation. And it totally makes sense, right? Because our GI tract is the outside meets the inside, right? Because it's a tube that goes through the whole body, and whatever we ingest, it has to be checked whether it is okay to come in. So that's why we have a lot of our immune system around the gut. And then what also is happening is that what we're eating, it is information. We typically think about it in terms of calories, right? Or whether or not it tastes good. But really, food is information. It's like putting software into your computer, right? So you can think of it like the body is the hardware and the food is software because it's talking to the immune system, it's talking to the microbes, it's talking to every cell in the body. So when the immune system was not working quite right, I was like, okay, what is throwing the immune system off apart from the surgery trauma, right? Which is a big stress on the body, and stress is known to create issues with the immune response. So yeah, in functional medicine, we have all these awesome tools. We can actually, and then from that, what can we look at is like what type of antibodies is your body creating towards common foods? And those are very specific types of immune responses. This is not like an allergy where one is testing, for example, IgE levels to certain foods. This is a different class of immunoglobulins. It's IgG4, and the test is made even more specific because this is IgG4 in complex with complement, which is when you start looking at the whole immunology and immunological cascade of responses, this is the very response that can create inflammation. So when we did that test for you, I think there were a couple of things that were a bit surprising, but not so surprising, right? Like I think what lit up was gluten and dairy. And then
Yep.
there were just a couple other minor things, but the gluten and dairy were quite big out there. And I remember you were very like, okay, let's do it. It's a huge change, right? I mean, so many
Yeah.
people are like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna live without my bread or without the cheese?
Oh, I was the grilled cheese king, I feel like, and that's gluten and dairy, right? And like milkshakes or and
Oh yes.
luckily this day and age, like you can get everything dairy free and gluten free, which is awesome. But back, I mean, 6 years ago, it was more challenging than it is today. But I remember making the 1 year commitment and it was hard. It was surprising how much stuff, especially gluten. Dairy was a little bit more obvious. And then I was able to have butter, and it was something about casein, right? The butter.
Yes, yes. So oftentimes when we think about dairy, we don't realize that actually milk it's an emulsion, and it's a very fine mixture of various components. So people can typically an issue either with lactose, which is a sugar that's present in the milk, and the issue with lactose is when we don't express an enzyme that helps us to degrade that sugar. And then the sugar goes into lower intestines, and that's where it meets the microbiome. And then the microbiome can ferment the lactose, and this can create gas and discomfort. So that's lactose intolerance. So this is not quite an immunological response to dairy, right? This is more of a, okay, I am not digesting the sugar and my microbes are upset because I'm getting lactose. That's why, people who are lactose intolerant, they can have dairy. And, that is, for example, without lactose, right? Like there's milk, but lactate and stuff like that. So where the lactose is sort of pre-digested and it's no longer present, and then it doesn't upset their stomach. The other issue with dairy, which is what we usually test on an immune response test, is whether or not the protein of the dairy, which is called casein, can create an immune response. And in your case, this was a protein that was creating an immune response. And this oftentimes looks as a bit different than lactose intolerance, because when you think about it, sometimes it can create bloating or some digestive distress, but sometimes it creates, stuffy nose, for example, or ear infections or brain fog. Okay, so the food sensitivity symptoms, they are very different. They are not limited just to the GI tract like the lactose intolerance. So yeah, so milk is an emulsion, which is we have the sugar, we have the lactose, we have the proteins like casein, we have also a lot of fat, right? And then once we start processing milk, we can have cream, we can have cheese. So cream is mostly fats and some proteins. Cheese is quite a bit of milk protein, and then butter is primarily milk fat, and then ghee is like clarified butter where all the proteins and sugars have been removed, and then you have like this pure milk fat. And I find that many people who have dairy issues, those immunological issues, so dairy sensitivity, and they don't tolerate, for example, the casein protein. Like I am one of these people, I can't have it, but I can enjoy butter and I can have ghee, no problem. And
Yeah.
then occasionally I can even allow some whipped cream. So yeah, because this whipped cream has, or cream in general, has the least amount, and butter, they have the least amount of protein. So then obviously the amount of the antigen to which the body will have to respond is minimized.
And I don't know if I could have done it in cutting out butter, I tell you, but just cutting out the gluten and dairy, it was interesting because I had never done it before. And I made the 1 year commitment, and
Mm,
it was pretty cool just observing what happened. At the end of that year, the unintended consequence, which was a positive one, though, is I lost over 30 pounds, which it wasn't even my plan. I wasn't trying to
yeah.
lose weight. I was slightly overweight. I wasn't trying
No,
to
but you
lose.
were fit. You're a tall, like a muscular guy, and you were fit. So it was not one of your goals. Yeah, I remember
Exactly.
that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I still work out a lot, but it leaned me up quite a bit. And then what I didn't realize, I had, from time to time, a little bit of snoring. The snoring went away. I had from basketball injuries like arthritis in my hand and in my right ankle. And specifically my right ankle, every day I would wake up and I would limp for like the first 5 minutes until I kind of
Hmm.
walked it off. That completely went away. The
Yeah.
arthritis completely went away. It wasn't even what I was trying to do.
Yeah.
Um,
So you know why? I mean, let's just maybe pause there because this might be interesting. So, when we eat foods, for example, let's say like you had this sensitivity to dairy, right? And the protein of the milk is creating inflammation. This inflammation goes everywhere in the body, and this limping, with a ankle that got injured. This is very typical, like to have the pain where there was prior injury, because there's still some scar tissue, and the immune system, sort of the inflammation goes there. This is like this colloquial thing, and this is exactly what happens. So once you remove these foods that are bothering your immune system, then there is no trigger, right? And the body it can relax, the immune system can relax. And then this pain, which is the very clear symptom of inflammation, also goes away.
yeah.
Yeah.
And it's interesting, again, like 6 years later, but even so, 1 year later, I had the benefits that I wasn't even anticipating. And I remember you had asked me to kind of try it, make a 1 year commitment. And at the end of the year, I'm like, hold on a second. I just lost 30 pounds. I don't snore anymore. And I lost my aches and pains. Like, and I'm not getting sick like I used to. But I think
Yeah.
that had to do with some of the stuff you helped me with the gut health, which I'm sure the gluten and dairy, getting rid of that
Yeah.
certainly provided. But At that point, it's like, okay, am I going to add this stuff back in? Heck no. And over the last handful of years, I've experimented, as you know, different times where I added it back in. Like purposely, I added it back in for a quarter. Well, I
Yeah.
gained like 12 pounds and I felt groggy and foggy and my ears were blocked. And it was like crazy what I experienced by adding dairy back in. And similar things too when I added gluten back in. And now even if time to time I'll say, okay, I'm gonna go ahead and have dairy tonight. Sure enough, the next morning, I mean, I feel the effects. And it's like I think you live with the way things are. You're just so used to ingesting that food and feeling a certain way that it
Yeah.
becomes the new normal. But then when you eliminate it for a year and then you add it back in and you notice the
Yeah.
effects that it has on your GI system and the way you feel and the way you look and every other way. Yeah.
Absolutely, absolutely. I think, this is the most exciting thing that everyone can do is to be your own scientist, and really try things out. Because the worst thing is like, oh, I can't do this. It's like, why can't you? If you think that this is only in your head, right? Because if you really have certain issues, really explore. This is the easiest thing one can do is to really start questioning what is normal for you, right? Because maybe it doesn't have to be that way. And especially with like these chronic conditions when there's pain and the stiffness and like the lack of energy or the weight that doesn't want to come off. This is really the primary things that are associated with inflammation that is very often linked to something that we do on a regular basis.
And some of the things you did too, in conjunction with this, when you had me poop in a box, and it came back, and my gut health
Yeah.
wasn't so hot, and it was things I'd never even heard of or really been exposed to. Of like, you had me drinking bone broth each day, taking some different supplements, introduced kombucha into the diet, a lot of the healthy kind of enzymes. And sure enough, I mean, I don't get sick anymore like I used to. I mean, it's really was unbelievable the transformation that's happened. And the only time I seem to get sick is when I beat my body up. And,
Hmm.
we were just talking about this. Like if I drink alcohol, and for example, I had a trip to Nepal and Thailand. And between the flights and the time change,
Yeah.
and I drank alcohol for a couple few days, which I am normally not doing at all anymore. It's my immune system was suppressed and susceptible, and I got sick. And
Yeah, because it was
ironically, the
a
same
lot of
thing
stress.
happened back in November when I went to Mexico. It was like the
Hmm.
exact same scenario. And it's like those are the only two times that I've gotten sick in the last 6 months. And sure enough, I could pinpoint it right to when I was kind of allowing my immune system. And I had some dairy and letting up on the gluten. So it was like a shock to my system because I was, you
Yeah.
know what I mean? Just kind of letting all these things happen.
Absolutely. One thing that we should say though, that sometimes it is possible to heal from the food sensitivities. Okay. So I do have people who were able to eliminate the food and then heal their gut and then go back to a certain food. Okay. Sometimes it is not possible, or, the reaction just goes a little bit lower. So I actually think that you are one of my healthier clients.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
probably would be able to tolerate like, some gluten and some dairy, right? But then, like you're saying, it's the amount of factors that come together. So like the time change, the travel, everything that's associated with that, that's the emotional stress just of the travel itself, because it is a change. And change for the human body is always a bit stressful. Not all stress is negative. There's also very positive stress, but still this can be factored in, because even too much of positive stress, it can just be taxing. And if there is no enough rest, that is on the other side of the positive stress, this can also result in the immune suppression. So it's like how many things are piled on, right? And how much stuff does the body need to deal with? And then, yeah, okay, how does this affect you, right? Your immune system. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something to think about. And this stool test that you are talking about, yeah, it's it's a cool tool. Yeah, the whole microbiome research, this. Okay, now I've been 10 years in functional medicine. I think it was 15 years before that. So let's say we're looking at, okay, almost 25 years of the microbiome research. And we know so much. And then, of course, like, like with anything in science, the more you know, the more it's like, whoa, there is more. And like, how does this really work? I mean, we are discovering, I mean, there's microbes everywhere, like, I remember like maybe a couple of years ago, I was reading a research study where they were talking about the microbiome in the bladder, right? And then you actually do you do the urine test, and usually the urine test, there is no bacteria. And if there is bacteria, right, it's like, oh, you have a UTI. But there is microbiome in the bladder. So then it's also like, huh? So how does this happen, right? That we don't have the bacteria in the pee, or we only get the pathogenic bacteria in the pee. So yeah, and then also there was all this, notion that maybe like, yeah, when women are pregnant, the fetus is also protected from the bacteria. No, there's bacteria everywhere. Okay, so they are definitely very tightly interconnected with how we function, and we live in great symbiosis. So the stool testing, it's only scratching the surface, because it's definitely not testing everything that there is, like all the microbes that we have, but it does aim at least giving us a snapshot of the most important species, and if there's anything that's pathogenic that really needs to move out or needs some help with moving out. So yeah, even though this test is not perfect and not comprehensive by any means, it is helpful, and oftentimes it is really a good gateway into improving the gut health and the microbial composition.
And you know what I like, and it gives me a lot of confidence, and is we do the quarterly blood testing.
Yeah.
And I like the aspect of staying proactive and ahead of things,
Hmm.
and watching trends and early indications. And we've been able to supplement some things where my
Hmm.
counts were low, and we were
Yeah.
able to use more a holistic approach versus
Yeah.
throwing medicine at it. And just to keep, I feel like too often blood work is used like reactively, like when something's wrong, versus the way we're utilizing it is a little bit more proactively to stay healthy, which I really love. And it just gives me a lot of confidence that I'm healthy, and you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Nothing's going to surprise me.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. I love this too, especially in America. It's so cool to have, there's really a lot of access to do your own blood work at a relatively affordable cost, so you can really test a lot of things yourself without the help of a doctor, right? And then there's lots of analysis tools and lots of really smart, trained people that can help you look at how does your blood work look like? Is it optimal, right? Because it's not only oftentimes, you go to the doctor's office, right? And they just take your blood and they say, oh, everything is great, everything is within the reference range. But it's also, this is so cool, and nobody really thinks about it. I mean, an average person doesn't think about it. Like, what is the reference range? How do they do reference ranges? Usually, they take, for example, 100 volunteers, okay, like at random, and they just draw their blood, healthy volunteers. But we have a lot of unhealthy, seemingly healthy people, right? So these reference ranges are shifting, and some of them, they are just too broad or too narrow, and they're just not healthy, And depending on the value, sometimes it's better to be either on the upper range, reference range, or the lower, or sometimes right in the middle. So there is an art to reading this blood work and really knowing which ones you want to be where. Really good book for people if they want to dive into this. It's the Healthy Deviant
the
by
healthy
Pilar
ingredients.
Gerasimo. Yeah,
Yeah.
Healthy Deviant. Yes, it's about how, really being healthy nowadays,
Yeah.
you're not going to be a normal common thing, common person, because nowadays an average 65-year-old, they are on 5 prescription medications.
Wow.
Yeah. And I know for sure that most of these things are fully preventable because they are created by lifestyle choices. So by what we eat, how we stress or de-stress, how much or how little do we move, and then also the toxins in our environment, how much there are, and then also how well are we supporting our own detoxification function. So those are the big ones that if we hit them, then you can stay healthy for a really long time.
Kasia, as we land the plane, I was just about to ask you, and you almost kind of answered it in that question or in that dialogue. What would your definition of holistic? This is the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. So, what would
Yeah.
your definition as a holistic health practitioner? What would your definition of holistic health be?
So first of all, health is not the absence of disease, because this is not enough. True health is feeling really good, strong, and vibrant in your body, and feeling like you have purpose and you have the energy to really contribute your best self to whatever it is that is rocking your world. This is my definition of the true health. And the big things that really play into this, on the practical level, like I said, it is good nutrition. It's moving your body. So daily movement, doesn't have to be exercise and sweating on a treadmill. It's really like moving your body, or at least finding a movement with your life. It is choosing the right thoughts, because we consume also a lot of thoughts and a lot of materials, and this can create stress or wellness, right? I'm sure you talk about the mindset on the podcast as well. And this is really just as important, if not more important, than all the physical stuff, so like the mindset is absolutely critical. Then, yeah, healthy microbiome, healthy gut. I think this does go with good nutrition and exercise and reducing toxins. And yeah, so reducing toxins, eating well, de-stressing, because stress can really block the immune response. So that's another cornerstone of good health. And yeah, reduction in toxicity, and really improving our own detoxification systems. Those are really, really important. And the last one, that is also tied into this, that's like, if you go even further, and this is like really big in the biohacking scene, it's like the mitochondrial health. Mitochondria is the little factories of energy in our cells, and they get hit really hard by all the oxidative stress that comes from bad diet, toxicity, stress, all the all the bad stuff. So
Yeah.
it's kind of like, as my mentor likes to say, all disease comes from crap food, stress, and toxins. So those three. Yeah.
That's a
So the
good
good health.
summary. That's a good simplification.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
So the
Um,
health is the reverse of that, plus the purpose, really like this feeling of purpose, because just being healthy without the purpose, people often can't get fully healthy if they don't feel the purpose, something to live for. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, thank you, Kasha. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you, what would be the best way to get a hold of you to do a consultation?
Yeah, I offer to all new clients 20-minute free consults. So feel free to go to Nourish app, from nourishment, nourishapp.com. And there is a form to fill out. Anyone can do that. You can book a time with me to chat for 20 minutes about what's going on for you, and then we can decide what's the next step. Is it really working with me or something else? My goal is to support people the best I can, on their healing journey, even if it means that it is not me who's going to be helping them.
Well, you've been amazing for me. And thank you so much for being with us today, Kasha. And we'll see you soon.
Yeah, thank you, Jason. It's been a pleasure.
Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Holistic Wealth and Health Podcast. We hope we inspired you to make changes so you can live your best life. If you want to find out more about what we do, or if you want to have a holistic wealth and health financial plan, please call 456 833 7000. Please subscribe to the podcast and share it widely with your friends and family. Financial planning and advisory services are offered through Prosperity Capital Advisors, PCA, an SEC registered investment advisor with its principal place of business in the state of Ohio. J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management and PCA are separate, non-affiliated entities. PCA does not provide tax or legal advice. Insurance and tax services offered through J.L. Smith Holistic Wealth Management are not affiliated with PCA. Information received from this podcast should not be viewed as individual investment advice. Product discussions and illustrations are hypothetical in nature and will vary based on many factors, including, but not limited to, age, health, product, insurance carrier, and product design. You should consult the insurance carrier website and policy for detailed information. For information pertaining to the registration status of PCA, please contact the firm or refer to the investment advisor public disclosure website, www.advisorinfo.sec.gov. For additional information about PCA, including fees and services, send for our disclosure statement as set forth on Form ADV from PCA using the contact information herein. Please read the disclosure statement carefully before you invest or send money.